So we've had lots of questions about contraindications or groups of people who should not be receiving the vaccination. So, for example, those with who are immunosuppressed, or those who have sickle cell anemia, other pre-existing conditions that might mean that you cannot take the vaccination. So, do we have an understanding of what those conditions are? And could you share that?
I'll start and then I'm going to pass it off, because I think that this is where it's really important. We're talking about a lot of different groups, and there are the ones where it's, very clear guidance as to people who should not. And then there comes times where you have to have a discussion first and you have to talk about risks and benefits. The ones that are clear that, you do not go straight to vaccination is if you have an anaphylactic reaction to your first dose of the vaccine, then you will not get put right into the kind of plan for another one. You'll have to get an assessment, and they'll have to do some special assessments for you prior to determining if you can get another dose. If you are known to be allergic to a component for which we talked a little bit about polyethylene glycol, if you've previously been identified with having an allergy to that, then you are required to see an allergist prior to getting your vaccine. I will tell you all that is an extremely rare allergy with very few people. I think when we polled all across the allergists in Ontario, there were less than 50 cases. And that's because PEG is actually present in, I think it's something like over 30% of the medications that we buy over the counter, as well as most laxatives and a lot of makeup products and foods and drinks, etc. So those are the ones that are kind of an easy population that would not go straight to vaccine. After that, though, then there are special populations where there's a discussion that needs to be had. People often ask me about, what about immunocompromised patients? And the thing I have to tell you is immunocompromised patients is not one group of patients. There are so many patients who fall under this. It just means your immune system may not work as well as it should. So, and for a lot of people who have this, they're still able to go for the vaccine. There's some people where their immune system is so compromised that we wonder, the vaccine won't hurt them, but we just wonder, will they be able to mount that response we want them to make? It's not that it's, particularly dangerous. We just don't know if they'll mount it. So they could still get it, but they may not mount the same response. These people often have other treatments are in place to protect them from infections in general. So it's not that it would harm them, because these are not live vaccines, so they cannot get infected from them, but they may not mount the same response. I'll pass off to others to talk about other kind of special populations as well. Perhaps maybe Dr. Adame first, because I know you mentioned sickle cell as well.
Yeah, for those who have sickle cell, I don't know whether many people know this. When sickle cell anemia children are very susceptible to certain infections. So we have a fetish approach to their getting certain vaccines. In fact, they get more vaccines on top of what every child gets. And sometimes the parents wonder. And it's because they are very susceptible to certain infections. So vaccinations in sickle cell patients actually helps them rather than harms them. And we believe that just like the flu, if they do get COVID and you have sickle cell disease, you are at a higher risk of getting the severe form of the disease and getting complications because you have sickle cell disease. So as a result, actually, provincially, priority is being given to those who have sickle cell disease to get the vaccines if they could get ahead, because they need it more to be protected against COVID. So I will encourage you, if you have family members, or if you have children or adolescents, or you have relatives friends who have sickle cell anemia, do encourage them to take the vaccine. A priority has been set for them to get it because of the consequences of COVID in this group of people.
Yeah, I think that one other point that should be mentioned is that the populations that are targeted for vaccination typically are those that were evaluated in the clinical trials. And so when the companies file to Health Canada, the European Medicines Agency, the FDA, if they did a study that included individuals 16 and above, they can't make a filing, typically not. They can't make a filing that says, we're going to file for using this vaccine in individuals of all age groups. Okay. And so the reason why certain age groups might not, in this case, children, were not included initially, and they're simply because they were not in the clinical trial. So that's all. The other general comment I would make, and Zainab captured this nicely, is that for the most part, as far as safety is concerned, the only real contraindication at this point, absolutely, well, maybe it's relatively because you want to discuss this with your doctor and allergist, is if you're allergic to something in the vaccine vial. And this has been made reference to earlier. Beyond that, as has been said before, the issue is not so much whether or not people with different underlying chronic diseases will have a safe journey through vaccination, but rather whether or not their immune system would respond effectively to the vaccine. And that may require special considerations for them in terms of how they're monitored with respect to trying to determine how well their immune system responded. And so there are some studies that are being done now to get a better understanding of what would happen if you vaccinate somebody who is on dialysis. What happens if you vaccinate an organ transplant patient or a patient with cancer? There are no safety issues. It's just a matter of how well does the person respond.